This is live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News Hour. DD India, India's voice to the world. I'm Sakal Bhatt. Coming up in the next hour. India lodges protests with China over its announcement to establish 2 new counties in its Khotan prefecture, with parts of the jurisdiction falling in India's Ladakh. South Korean presidential guards prevent arrest of impeached Yoon after tense standoff. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken to visit South Korea next week amid political crises. German and French foreign ministers meet Syria's de facto leader Ahmed al-Sharaa in Damascus, push for peaceful political transition. And Indian batters disappoint again in the 5th and final test against Australia. Captain Rohit Sharma rested, but the team puts up only 185 runs all out on day 1. We begin with latest from political crisis in South Korea. Well, as South Korea is staring at the constitutional crises of sorts, Seoul saw some dramatic 6-hour-long standoff with security, police calling off an attempt to arrest suspended President Yoon Suk-yeol. The dramatic events unfolded at his official residence on Friday, raising questions about democracy and accountability in the nation. Meanwhile, as the country battles to weather the political crises, US State Secretary Antony Blinken is all set to visit South Korea and meet his counterpart Cho Tae-ol on January 6th, reportedly.
South Korean investigators have called off their attempt to arrest impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol after a 6-hour standoff at his residence. The confrontation involving Yoon's Presidential Security Service and military personnel ended with authorities citing safety concerns for their withdrawal. The scene outside Yoon's residence was chaotic. About 2,700 police officers and 135 buses formed barricades as hundreds of Yoon's supporters, including far-right activists and evangelical preachers, gathered in protest, chanting slogans like "Illegal warrant is invalid."
I am here in front of the official residence to save our country from the crisis. The Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials is trying to arrest the president in an illegal way, not in a legitimate way. So I came here today to prevent it.
Inside, investigators faced off with security forces protecting Yoon. Negotiations failed, and the Corruption Investigation Office eventually declared the arrest effectively impossible due to the risk of escalation.
I question whether the issuance of such an illegal warrant aligns with the principles of the rule of law. It is our position that this unlawful arrest warrant request is illegal and invalid.
Meanwhile, South Korea's Constitutional Court announced it will hold its first arguments in Yoon's impeachment trial on January 14. The president is required to appear in court for the session. A second hearing is scheduled for January 16 in case of non-compliance. Yoon's arrest warrant, valid until Monday, now hangs in limbo. His legal team has also challenged the warrant in the Constitutional Court. While Yoon's supporters rallied for his survival, anti-Yoon demonstrators clashed nearby, accusing him of dragging the nation into political chaos.
I feel extremely frustrated as the current state of rebellion has psychologically demoralized the people. The thought that the situation might continue for a prolonged period leaves me with a deep sense of gloom.
Yoon, suspended from duty following his impeachment by lawmakers, faced his controversial December 3 martial law declaration. If convicted, he could face imprisonment or even the death penalty. Despite ignoring 3 summons for questioning, Yoon remains defiant, vowing to fight authorities. Nancy Baloda's report for DD India.
And staying with South Korea, a multi-storied building was engulfed in fire and thick smoke in the city of Cheongram on Friday. Fire department said that 12 people had been sent to hospital for smoke inhalation. It further added that about 30 people trapped in building have been safely rescued. A total of 82 firefighting vehicles were deployed to bring the blaze under control after the fire started in a restaurant on the ground floor of the building, which also houses a swimming pool where children take classes. In a media briefing on Friday, India's Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson Randir Jaiswal responded to China's announcement of two new counties in Hotan Prefecture, which fall within India's union territory of Ladakh. Now, India has lodged a solemn protest with China through diplomatic channels.
We have seen the announcement pertaining to the establishment of two new counties in Hotan Prefecture of China. Parts of jurisdiction of these so-called counties fall in India's union territory of Ladakh. We have never accepted the illegal Chinese occupation of Indian territory in this area. Creation of new counties will neither have a bearing on India's long-standing and consistent position regarding our sovereignty over the area, nor lend legitimacy to China's illegal and forcible occupation of the same. We have lodged a solemn protest with the Chinese side through diplomatic channels on this matter.
MEA spokesperson also said that India has raised its concerns over a hydropower project on the Yarlung-Tsangpo River in Tibet Autonomous Region of China. India has emphasized the need for transparency and consultation with downstream countries.
We have seen the information released by Xinhua on 25th December 2024 regarding a hydropower project on the Yarlung-Tsangpo River in the Tibet Autonomous Region of China. As a lower riparian state with established user rights to the waters of the river, we have consistently expressed through expert level as well as diplomatic channels our views and concerns to the Chinese side over mega projects on rivers in their territory. These have been reiterated along with the need for transparency and consultation with downstream countries following the latest report. The Chinese side has been urged to ensure that the interests of downstream states of the Brahmaputra are not harmed by activities in upstream areas. We will continue to monitor and take necessary measures to protect our interests.
India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar met his Maldivian counterpart Abdullah Khalil in New Delhi today. They took stock of progress made on understandings reached during the state visit of President Dr. Muizu to India in October 2024 and followed up on issues that need further focus from both sides. Both sides signed memorandum of understanding for implementation of high-impact community development projects under Phase 3 in Maldives to grant assistance by the Government of India.
Today's visit, Excellency, allows us to take stock of the progress since then. I think we have some important developments to report, positive developments to report. And certainly there is much more that we need to do. I see that the framework to promote the use of local currencies for cross-border transactions has been signed. We have increased our engagements in various sectors. And I do want to say that India has always stood by Maldives. For us, you are a very concrete expression of our neighborhood first policy.
It is an important year for the Maldives-India relations. We are celebrating 60 years of establishment of formal diplomatic relations. As a beneficiary of India's neighborhood first policy, the government of Maldives deeply values the significant importance India places in its relationship with the Maldives. Honourable Minister, President Dr. Muiz looks forward to working closely with the Government of India to strengthen the partnership even further.
Well, as people in New Orleans and New York are struggling to cope up with the aftermath of the recent spate of attacks, especially with those suffering from personal losses, the investigations by FBI are going on full throttle. The FBI there has described the New Orleans event or attack as a deadly event and an act of terrorism carried out by a lone wolf or lone attacker. Meanwhile, life has started limping back to normalcy again in the heart of New Orleans with the reopening of Bourbon Street after the New Year's Day attack. DD India's Tripti Tripathi reports.
New Orleans' iconic Bourbon Street was transformed into a solemn tribute, with flowers, candles and heartfelt notes left in the memory of those who perished on what should have been a joyful New Year celebration. The tragedy struck like a thunderclap as a truck plowed into a crowd, killing at least 14 people and injuring 30 others. Survivors recount the horrors of that night, moments of chaos, fear, and unimaginable pain.
I'm very disappointed that someone so ruthless and heartless would do something like this. We're a city of love. You come to New Orleans and you love the city, you love the people.
I think that we all just need to continue to live our lives and certainly be cautious and aware, but live our lives. And don't let those people make us change, because that's what they want us to do, and to live in fear. And I'm not going to do that. And I hope other people don't do it, but be cautious and be smart.
The attacker, who was killed in a firefight with police, was identified as an army veteran from Texas. Social media posts revealed his allegiance to ISIS, a detail that shook the nation. US President Joe Biden, in a statement, vowed that ISIS would find no safe haven.
People in New Orleans are sending an unmistakable message. They will not let this attack or the attackers' deluded ideology overcome us. None of us should fear that it will overcome us. We're going to continue to relentlessly pursue ISIS and other terrorist organizations where they are, and they'll find no safe harbor here. I'll continue to provide updates in New Orleans and Las Vegas as the facts develop.
The FBI confirmed that the attack was 100% inspired by ISIS and labeled it a lone wolf terrorist attack. Investigators found no evidence of accomplices. A search of the attacker's Houston residence uncovered precursor chemicals, deepening the reality of his premeditated plan.
This was an act of terrorism. It was premeditated and an evil act. We do not assess at this point that anyone else involved in this attack is involved in this attack except for Shamsa Din Jabbar.
But even in the shadows of terror, the indomitable spirit of New Orleans shone through. Within 36 hours, the city began to heal, reopening businesses and resuming daily life. With the Super Bowl just weeks away, New Orleans is determined to move forward, with city officials pledging heightened security measures to ensure the safety of upcoming crowded events. Tripti Tripathi's report for DD India.
And still to come on DD India News Hour, coming up next. We get you more news of German unemployment, how it escalates into 2025, but with winners and losers in manufacturing and services sector. And US President Joe Biden blocks Nippon's purchase of US steel. And Ho Chi Minh City leads Vietnam's tourism boom in 2025.
The delicate balance between human and animal coexistence has become a growing problem. Finding sustainable ways to coexisting together and thriving in a rapidly changing environment.
Tell them not to panic. Instead, they should just stand completely still and let the lions walk past peacefully. This is how we show respect to the animal and in turn gain its trust.
After the plantation of lemon trees, the elephants stopped entering the fields. They passed by the field boundaries without entering.
Poaching gangs and trafficking gangs that go after these elephants and capture them, things like that. And that's something that we are all up against.
We should try to modify the human behavior through education and awareness.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Sakal Bhatt, and now let's move on to Russia-Ukraine update. It's 2025 and Russia-Ukraine conflict is back in the spotlight. This time, Ukrainian military carrying out a high-precision strike on a Russian command post in Kursk region. Also, Russia downed several Ukrainian drones reportedly. Amid all this, an impending political shift in the United States raises more concerns about potential changes to the conflict's dynamics. DD India's Rahul Upadhyay brings us this detailed report.
The Ukrainian military has carried out a high-precision strike on a Russian command post in Marino in the Kursk region on Thursday, where Ukrainian forces hold chunks of territory after a major cross-border incursion. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Thursday that US President-elect Donald Trump could be decisive in the outcome of the 34-month-old conflict with Russia and help stop Kremlin. He also hoped that Trump's administration could establish quick contact with Russia.
Trump can be decisive for us. This is most important thing. His qualities are indeed there. He can be decisive in this war. He is capable of stopping Putin, or to put it more fairly, help us stop Putin. He is able to do this.
In response to the Ukrainian strike, Russian military's air defense units have downed 4 Ukrainian missiles in the Kursk region, and Kursk's regional governor said strikes had damaged a high-rise apartment and other buildings. Russian Ministry of Defense also said that over the past 24 hours, Ukraine lost over 580 soldiers, 1 tank, 1 armored personnel carrier, and 9 armored vehicles in the battles taking place in the direction of Kursk region. While escalation in fighting in the battlefields between Russia and Ukraine coincided with the growing natural gas transition tensions between the two countries, Russia has called on the United States, Ukraine, and some European countries to take the responsibility of the termination of sending Russian gas to Europe through Ukrainian territory. Rahul Upadhyay's report for DD India.
The European Union has confirmed on Thursday that gas supplies across Europe remain stable except in Moldova. Deliveries of Russian gas to Europe via Ukraine pipelines stopped on Wednesday after Kyiv refused to renew a decades-long arrangement that earned billions of dollars for both countries. While Russian gas now accounts for less than 10% of the EU's imports, down from over 40% before Russia-Ukraine conflict, some eastern member states remain reliant on it. Meanwhile, Slovakia faces escalating tensions with Kyiv after Ukrainian authorities halted Russian gas transits to Slovakia, a move Prime Minister Robert Fico condemned as sabotage. Fico has warned of retaliation, including cutting electricity exports to Ukraine and reducing support for Ukrainian refugees.
After the delegation returns from Brussels, I will convene the Coalition Council. On behalf of the Slovak Social Democracy, I announce that we are ready to negotiate and agree in a coalition to stop electricity supplies and significantly reduce subsidies for citizens of Ukraine. The only alternative for a sovereign Slovakia is the restoration of transit or the demand for compensation mechanisms that will replace the shortfalls in public finances after the amount of almost 500 million euros.
Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister Majid Takht Ravanchi is in India for talks aimed at resuming energy trade. He met India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar in the national capital. The two leaders discussed bilateral ties, progress in Chabahar port and regional developments. Taking to microblogging site Platform X, the minister said that the Foreign Office consultations will give a momentum to India-Iran partnership. In more news, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has authorized a delegation to travel to Qatari capital Doha for Gaza ceasefire negotiations. And all this amidst Israel continuously carrying out airstrikes on Hamas's targets in Gaza. This in response to Yemen's Houthis militants repeatedly firing drones towards Israel in what they call act of solidarity with Palestinians. Aman of DD India has more details in this report.
A missile launched from Yemen on Friday morning was intercepted by the Israeli Air Force, prompting heightened security in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. Israeli army said that a missile that was launched from Yemen and crossed into Israeli territory was intercepted. Yemen's Houthi militants have repeatedly fired drones and missiles towards Israel in what they describe as acts of solidarity with Palestinians. On the other hand, Israel carried out airstrikes on dozens of Hamas targets in Gaza and killed Chief of Hamas Internal Security Forces Qassem Shahwan. The Israeli military said it had hit around 40 Hamas gathering points as well as command and control centers. Further, it said that it had taken numerous measures to reduce the risk of harming civilians, including using precise munitions, aerial surveillance, and other intelligence. The surge in operations and casualties comes amid a renewed push to reach a ceasefire agreement before US President-elect Donald Trump takes office this month, with Israeli mediators dispatched on Thursday to Doha to resume talks brokered by Qatari and Egyptian mediators. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has authorized Israeli negotiators to continue talks in Doha over the release of hostages. Indirect negotiations, facilitated by Qatar, Egypt and the United States, have been underway in Doha for weeks, offering renewed hope for a ceasefire and hostage release agreement, though an agreement has remained elusive. In December, Hamas had said that though negotiations were continuing in a serious manner, Israeli negotiators had put forward new conditions which delayed reaching a deal. Israel swiftly rebuffed the accusation, saying it was Hamas that was creating new obstacles to an agreement. Bureau Report, DD India.
The foreign ministers of Germany and France say that they wanted to forge a new relationship with Syria and urged a peaceful transition as they met its de facto leader Ahmed al-Sharaa in Damascus on Friday on behalf of the European Union. The French and German ministers met Sharaa in Damascus People's Palace. Germany's Annalena Baerbock and France's Jean-Noël Barrot are the first ministers from EU to visit Syria since rebels seized control of Damascus on December 8th. Led by Sharaa's Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, the new rulers are working to reassure the international community that they will govern for all Syrians and not promote an Islamist revolution. Germany's Federal Labour Office revealed that the number of people out of work in Germany rose less than expected in December last year. The office said that the number of unemployed increased by 10,000 in seasonally adjusted terms to 2.87 million. Now, due to the subdued economic outlook, the number of unemployed is expected to continue to rise this year, exceeding the 3 million mark for the first time in 10 years. At the beginning of 2025, the average unemployment rate for the year edged higher to 6.0% in 2024 from 5.7% in 2023, according to the office. December marks the start of the winter break on the labour market, which means that unemployment and underemployment increased in December, as is usual in this month.
Vorausgesagt wird von unserer Seite, aber
well, the German economy has been shrinking for 2 years in a row, and that's worrisome as Germany used to be the economic engine of the continent. However, even in times of crisis, there seems to be some good news. Lars Holter is with Deutsche Welle and joins me from Berlin to give us more perspective. Lars, the latest job numbers are looking pretty good. What can you tell us about it?
Yes, that's correct. It might come as a bit of a surprise. After all, we've been dealing with a weak economy for a while, and yet these latest numbers, and those are the final numbers for 2024, tell us that 46.1 million people are currently working in jobs in Germany, and that is the highest number ever since the German reunification in 1990. It beats the previous year by 0.2% or by 72,000 people. And it continues a very strong trend. Every year since 2006, the German labor market grew, with the exception, of course, of 2020. That's the year of the pandemic. And that is a pretty strong performance. But, and here's the grain of salt in this report, the dynamic behind this job growth is weakening. The growth rate in the labor market was 1.4% in 22. 0.7% in 23, and now finally 0.2%, as I said. So it seems unlikely that we'll see further growth this year.
So for years, Germany was worried about the baby boomer generation retiring. How come you are seeing this job growth now?
Correct. A lot of boomers are retiring, and that creates a huge need to fill positions. But we're seeing two trends. More Germans actually picking up a job. That means participation in the labor market generally is up. And there's immigration to Germany. It's been well known for years that Germany is trying to lure highly skilled workers to strengthen its industry in many sectors, in fact, ranging from the general industrial sector to tech, where especially skilled workers from India are needed. And this is a trend the government wants to keep up, welcoming immigrants. And now that's where politics comes into play. We're heading into a snap election in just a few weeks, and one can only hope that the one anti-immigration party on the ballot won't gain too many votes, because the more influence they might have, the more difficult it will get to integrate people here and strengthen the labor market.
Let's move on to some other news and updates. US President Joe Biden on Friday followed through on his pledge to block Nippon's steel for $14.9 billion US bid for US steel, citing concerns the deal could hurt national security. The long-expected move cuts off a vital lifeline of capital for the embattled US icon, which has said it would have to idle key mills without an investment of about $3 billion US promised from the Japanese firm. While the deal had overwhelming support of the US Steel's shareholders, the decision was made by the government in line with strong opposition from the US steel workers, unions and politicians. Let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. Ho Chi Minh City shined as Vietnam's top tourist spot in 2024, welcoming 44 million visitors and earning $7.5 billion despite economic challenges. The city also earned several prestigious awards, including Best Festival Destination, Top Destination in Asia, and inclusion in Top 25 Must-Visit Places in 2025. At China's Chengdu research base of giant panda breeding, panda cubs born in 2024 are exploring the world with curiosity, captivating hearts with their playful antics and adorable charm. From pandas to elephants, elephants at Tierpark Berlin Zoo in Germany are enjoying munching on Christmas leftovers after the delivery of crunchy unsold Christmas trees in what has become an annual event. And then on to London Zoo, which conducted its annual stocktake on Friday, counting more than 10,000 animals under its care. Penguins, ring-tailed lemurs and squirrel monkeys were among the animals gathered and tallied. All right, so still to come on DD India News Hour. Coming up next. With the AQI in very poor category in the national capital at 371, Commission for Air Quality Management has invoked restrictions under GRAP 3 category.
Jaipur.
Goa, an adventure paradise like none other. From lush forests to rugged hills, from pristine ocean beach stretches to stunning lakes, there is something to explore in every corner of the state. And some adventures are wilder than others. Watch postcards from Goa on National Geographic.
Watching TT India News Hour, I'm Sakal Bhatt, and before we move on, let's do a quick recap of the headlines at the start. India lodges a protest with China over its announcement to establish 2 new counties in its Hotan prefecture, with parts of their jurisdiction falling in India's Ladakh. South Korean presidential guards prevent arrest of impeached President Yoon after tense standoff. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken meanwhile to visit South Korea next week amid political crisis. And Indian batters disappoint again in the 5th and final test against Australia. Skipper Rohit Sharma rested, but the team puts up only 185 runs all out on day 1. Going back to our top story on the constitutional or a political crisis staring at South Korea's dispensation, Professor Sandeep Kumar Mishra, professor from School of International Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, joins us in our Delhi studio. And I must also tell our viewers that you have had the opportunity to visit South Korea more than 50 times. Well, they have been scholarly visits there, including North Korea, I believe, sir. So you understand the country very well. To begin with, today we saw the sort of standoff, a dawn standoff, a human wall, 200 people making a human wall, a failed arrest attempt. This all 6-hour deadlock which was staged outside the home of the President Yoon. Is this totally some sort of an uncharted territory for South Korea? Because we've seen for the first time a sitting president has ever faced an arrest. So there is no rule book to follow, or is there?
Yeah, I think you are quite right. Actually, South Korea has been facing a very different kind of political crisis, DJ, because never actually somebody visualized that you can say, a president of South Korea is going to, without reasons, declare emergency martial law, send troops to National Assembly and National Election Commission. So it was unprecedented event. Actually, it was hard to believe that in 2024 something like that this could happen in a can say OECD country like South Korea. So it's really important and very strange thing. But I think we need to understand that Korean society has been also quite divided, in the sense that 2 political ideologies, conservative and liberals, they are divided among themselves. And Yoon Suk-yeol, president, he comes from conservative faction. And those people, they are doubting that actually liberal faction of Korean politics, they have been slightly soft to North Korea. They are probably having some kind of anti-state policy. So because of this approach of conservative faction, and especially Yoon Suk-yeol, there is a kind of, say, political crisis happening in South Korea. And that led to actually Yoon Suk-yeol declaring emergency martial law last month, 3rd of December.
Having said that, who is really in charge of the things there when President Yoon stands impeached? Because we know he was supposedly stripped of his power, and so to have a law enforcement officers trying to carry out an arrest, the drama that we saw today, which they have a legal warrant also for, only to be blocked by the security apparatus of President Yoon. Now, don't you think, Professor Mishra, this is something which raises serious and very uncomfortable, or rather precarious questions about who really is under command in South Korea?
I think it's quite right. Your query is actually, it's a quite politically chaotic situation in South Korea, because last actually few days it has been quite difficult, because whereas Corruption Investigation Office, CIO they call it, they have been issuing summons to South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol. He is not receiving those summons. Then they went to District Court of Seoul. District Court of Seoul actually gave permission to go them and basically detain him and make inquiry with Yoon Suk-yeol. But Presidential Security Services, they stopped them. And not only that, some conservative civil society groups who have been protesting in front of Yoon Suk-yeol residence, they also tried to create obstacles for those people who are going inside. So it's a really very chaotic situation and really difficult to say who is in command. But I think at the same time we need to understand that majority of Koreans, around 70 to 75% of Koreans, they are against Yoon Suk-yeol and his decision to apply emergency martial law in South Korea. So they are quite, and even bureaucracy, police and even military, other institutions also, they have been trying to defy president, and they have been trying to have some kind of democratic spirit in them and trying to resolve and stabilize the situation. They have been trying to go through institutional process, and I hope that in next 2-3 months things could be better in South Korea.
Like how? Because we've seen there has been an unprecedented month for South Korean politics, Professor. President Yoon's shocking yet short-lived martial law order was followed by a very dramatic impeachment against him. Now, then there is a criminal investigation he's looking at. But his refusal to appear for the questioning, and earlier this week, and a warrant for his arrest. So what I'm trying to understand from you is that what happens next? His reluctance to court arrest, is it a sort of a deadlock situation, or law enforcement agencies, or constitutionally speaking, he can be apprehended?
I think he can be apprehended, but the thing is, the CIO office, which right now doing investigation and they want to detain president to make further inquiry, this is basically corruption investigation organization. So basically, the ruling party, which is the party of Yoon Suk-yeol, they have been saying that this is not a matter of corruption. They are saying that insurrection, the issue of insurrection, it could not be matter of corruption. So that's why this agency, this office, this institution is not supposed to move forward the way they have been moving forward. And that's why they are, you can say, trying to defend it. But already, as you know, as you mentioned also, that 14th of December, already impeachment had been passed from National Assembly of South Korea. And the matter is lying now at the Constitutional Court. Constitutional Court, they had earlier 6 judges, now 2 more judges have been recruited. So now 8 judges are there. And that process till now had been going smoothly. So in all probability, next 2 months, even if this corruption charges and other things, they are not being resolved through other institutions, but Constitutional Court finally, they are going to have their verdict, I think maximum in 2 months, and I think things could be resolved, could be probably stabilized.
So could he face a death penalty or life imprisonment? If
that's basically once his impeachment process is completed by Constitutional Court, then he would not be president of South Korea. And then other agencies, including prosecutors, including this corruption investigation organization, and even police agency, they can investigate his criminality of his actions, and they may take this issue to court, and the normal courts, including up to Supreme Court, they can punish him for anything depending on the amount of criminality he has
or the
committed.
gravity of charges that have been blasted on him. President Yoon is he's considered a right-wing leader. Do you think he still has a strong support base? Because we saw the way his supporters made that human wall. They turned out outside his home at the crack of the dawn today to, oppose the arrest. In the sense, his political credentials, are they still intact?
I think partially it's still intact because, Korean society, as I told you in the beginning, it's divided into two parts, conservative and liberals. And conservatives are also having their own institutions, their own mechanism to constitute different civil society groups. And they have been trying to compete with liberal factions in Korean politics. So even if they are not very much satisfied with Yoon Suk-yeol, they are basically going to support Yoon Suk-yeol, and that basically around 20% people, they support Conservative Party, and those 20% support base is going to be there, one. The second actually support base also comes from some kind of church and other factions of Korea. They have been also behind support to Yoon Suk-yeol, and those supports are slightly less critical to, they don't apply their mind, they are not very much confident about their democracy, and they are saying that look, Yoon Suk-yeol is a special leader and that person must be protected. So I think around 10 to 20% people, they are going to keep supporting Yoon Suk-yeol in coming months also.
Okay, but by many accounts is Yoon a disgraced leader. He's considered a disgraced leader, impeached by the parliament. He awaits a decision of the Constitutional Court which can remove him from office.
Yeah, I think that's a institutional and other, you can say, democratic process through which he is going to be punished for his actions. But it doesn't mean that those conservative support group, they are going to, you can say, disappear. They are going to be there, and look at the Conservative political party. The Conservative Party, which is the name of the Conservative main ruling party, is People's Power Party. They are still having 23% support base, and majority of People's Power Party leaders, they have been supporting Yoon Suk-yeol. Actually, on early December, after the first impeachment was not passed, a new leader was chosen in People's Power Party, and he was Mr. Kwang. Kwang is basically he's considered to be very close to President Yoon Suk-yeol. So I think People's Power Party and that operators, that institution, that kind of network, they are going to remain in South Korea for time to come.
So why is it so difficult for the police, just to make us understand, arresting him? First of all, can this be technically called arrest or detainment? And in both cases, why this has proven like an uphill task for the Korean police to take him in their custody?
It happens because South Korea is it had been a democracy, and what happened that there are people who resort to undemocratic means, like President Yoon Suk-yeol had done this time. But if you have to punish them in any democratic process, you need to follow the timeline, the procedures and all those things. So probably that's one reason why it's taking slightly longer time to get him, to make him accountable to his act. And another problem is that it's a presidential form of government. So what happened, whoever is the president, he appoints police chief, he appoints the chief of prosecutor's office, he appoints audit and accounts chief, he appoints actually 3 members of constitutional court also, 3 members of constitutional court also. So actually it's a presidential system, and where president has lots of people, his own people at the different institutional heads, and they are directly, indirectly, you can say deceitfully, they have been trying to help Yoon Suk-yeol.
Right, so right. So has these appointment of these judges of late also added to the crisis?
I think it's going to resolve the crisis. Because actually Constitutional Court is supposed to have 9 members, and before this impeachment or even after the impeachment, there were only 6 judges who were there, 3 vacancies were there. So all the 3 vacancies, they were recommended by National Assembly. 2 of them, they have been accepted by current president, acting president, Choi Sang-mok, and I think 1 seat is still vacant. And any impeachment to be passed from Constitutional Court, there must be at least 6 judges who should agree to that decision. when there were only 6 judges, if one dissent was supposed to be difficult, and it would have been basically neutralized the impeachment of National Assembly. But fortunately this time 2 appointments have been done. So I think now 8 members are there. And given the people's anger, 70%, 75% of Korean people, they are very unhappy with Yoon Suk-yeol. They feel there is a criminal act, it's an act of you can say constitutional insurrection, and that's why he must be punished. So I think constitutional
Did
court
he
judges,
misread the martial law move? Did he miscalculated the martial law move? Because that is something which is backfired. How do you see that?
But I read that last 1 year at least, he had been talking here and there and basically taking sense of this act of declaring emergency martial law.
Yes.
This time, so I will not say that he was not prepared. He tried to be prepared through his there's a group called actually there's a high school in Seoul city, and lots of people from that high school where President Yoon Suk-yeol studied, actually they have been at the Ministry of Defense, the Minister of Defense, he was from the same school. Minister of Interior Security, that was also from the same group. So very important positions he tried to
So his own coterie.
So he tried to do everything, but in my opinion, he has not been a very efficient president, efficient leader. So probably he was not able. So one reason is that he was not able to efficiently operationalize his plan. So that's one. 2, in different institutions, even though he tried to put his own people and tried to plan, but down the order, people were not happy with this decision. So even if their seniors, they ordered to go to National Assembly, capture all opposition leaders, they did not follow the order, or they reluctantly followed the order, or they delayed to follow the order. So they created lots of obstacles.
Because Professor Mishra, sorry, I'm just interrupting you. Please allow me, because I really need to wrap it up here. One final question. How do you see Antony Blinken's visit? Has this surprised you, this move? Though he's going to meet his counterpart there. But since we discussed who is the one taking the call, I mean, who is in the commanding position, A, B, what next? Very briefly.
I think it's going to be a very important visit. And in all the cabinet members of President Yoon Suk-yeol, one of the most reliable person and basically acceptable person even to opposition party had been Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yeol. So I think he is going to, Blinken is foreign minister.
He is going to meet.
So I think he is going to meet Cho Tae-yeol, foreign minister of South Korea.
On 6th of January, that's what they...
and that's going to be important, because throughout this process of declaring martial law and impeachment, there have been lots of reports. Few of them they are confirmed, few of them they are not confirmed, that even Yoon Suk-yeol tried to instigate some kind of North Korean attack, and basically reaching out and maybe killing some South Korean soldiers, and maybe trying to fire something on American soldiers also, creating a situation in which he could justify his so-called emergency martial law declaration. So in all those confusion, it's very important that American, they are sending their leader, who is related to foreign policy making, and he can meet foreign policy makers, can say foreign minister of South Korea, Cho Tae-yeol. And I think it's going to be quite productive and quite stabilizing effect on both countries' bilateral relations.
We'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Professor Mishra, for joining us and sharing your insights into this brewing political / constitutional crisis in South Korea. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now let's move on to some more news. Amid rising concerns over an outbreak of human metapneumovirus in China, or HMPV, India is monitoring the situation and is also in touch with international agencies. National Centre for Disease Control, NCDC, is closely monitoring respiratory infections, seasonal influenza cases and other viral infections. No case of this virus has yet been reported in India. Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister Majid Takht Ravanchi met with India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri in New Delhi. According to the Ministry of External Affairs, 19th India-Iran Foreign Office consultations were co-chaired by the two leaders, and discussions between the two leaders covered bilateral ties, including Chabahar Port, regional issues and multilateral cooperation. Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister for Political Affairs is on a two-day visit to India to engage in discussions with the Indian counterpart. With the AQI in the very poor category in the national capital at 371, on Friday, Commission for Air Quality Management has invoked restrictions under GRAP 3 category. This includes hybrid mode for classes up to 5 and a ban on BS3 petrol and BS4 diesel cars, staggered timings for public offices and municipal bodies in Delhi, and a few national capital regions or NCR restrictions, as well as a ban on demolition work and mining activities in the region. India's Ministry of External Affairs has released the list of Prasar Bharati Samman awardees on Friday. This is the highest honour conferred by the President of India on NRIs, persons of Indian origin, or an organisation run by an NRI. The 18th edition of the Prasar Bharati Divas convention is scheduled to be held from 8th to 10th of January at Bhubaneswar in eastern state of Odisha. The awardees represent the excellence achieved by Indian diaspora in various fields. Professor Ajay Rane from Australia, Swami Sanyuktanand from Fiji, Dr. Lek Raj Juneja from Japan are some of the recipients of this prestigious award. India's Union Minister of Commerce and Industry Piyush Goyal addressed the media ahead of the 9th anniversary of the Startup India initiative on 16th of January. The minister highlighted a remarkable achievement since inception and its pivotal role in fostering innovation and entrepreneurship. Reiterating Prime Minister Modi government's unwavering commitment to accelerate startup growth, Minister Goyal said that India's startup journey over the past 9 years has been not just transformational but also inspiring for countless individuals.
Nearly 85-90% of the districts of India today have startups in there, working in their districts. And with startups, I'm not just talking of entrepreneurs. I'm talking of people with innovative ideas, newer ideas. Women are a big contributor to the startup story. From a 450 startup story 9 years ago, we are now 150,000 plus. So this transformational journey, of course, needs to be told to the world, and I think will also inspire more and more youngsters.
More news. Delhi police continues its search operations against Bangladeshi infiltrators. Police teams are conducting verification drives across various districts, doing door-to-door, leading to the identification of several Bangladeshi infiltrators, many of whom have already been deported. As part of this initiative, a significant success was achieved when 5 Bangladeshi nationals illegally residing in India using fake Aadhaar cards were identified during the verification drive and subsequently deported.
जो टोटल लोग पकड़े गए उसमें 5 लोग तो हमने आइडेंटिफाई कर लिए जो कि बांग्लादेशी थे। उन पे जो कांटेक्ट लिस्ट थी उनके पास एक आध ऐसे डॉक्यूमेंट मिले जो कि बांग्लादेशी थे और उसके बाद उनको डिपोर्ट किया गया। टोटल अभी तक 5 लोग हमने डिपोर्ट किए हैं द्वारका डिस्ट्रिक्ट से। फर्दर जो बचे हुए लोग हैं मोर देन 150 उनका वेरिफिकेशन चल रहा है और ये इंटेंसिव ड्राइव जो है ये अभी चलती रहेगी सो दैट कि जो भी इलीगल इमिग्रेंट्स हैं उस पर हमारी सख्त से सख्त कार्रवाई हो सके।
India's border security force of BSF sent back 4 Bangladeshis meanwhile who earlier trespassed into India through the border in Tripura sector. The BSF handed over them to the Bangladesh Border Guard Bangladesh or BGB on Thursday after a flag meeting at the Tripura Habiganj border. According to a press release from the BGB, the 4 had crossed into India last Wednesday with the help of 2 local brokers. However, the BSF members detained them on charges of entering illegally. The newly completed 220-132 kW Makov Chowk substation in Nepal's Anbukhari Keni is now operational. It will enable efficient electricity transmission from Marsingidi hydropower projects to Kathmandu Valley, built at an estimated cost of 2.5 billion rupees alongside the Mataritha substation. It enhances Nepal's electricity system capacity and reliability. Nepal and India have also agreed to export 10,000 megawatts of electricity from Nepal to India over the next decade. Let's now take a look at other stories making news. A significant milestone in strengthening communication and cultural integration was achieved as the 10 kW FM transmitter at Akashvani Kokrajhar was virtually inaugurated from Guwahati on Friday. The ceremony was graced by presence of Assam Governor Lakshman Prasad Acharya, India's Minister of Information and Broadcasting Ashwini Vaishnav, and Chief Minister of Assam Dr. Himanta Biswa Sarma. A tanker lorry carrying 18 tons from Kochi overturned on the Uppalipalayam flyover in Coimbatore city on Friday. After this, the gas leak was stopped by safety technicians and rescue operations were carried out intensively by State Fire and Rescue Department, police officials, district and corporation administration. You're watching DD India News Hour. It's time now for some sports news, and we begin with the chess legend Koneru Hampi, where Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi met Koneru Hampi, who recently won the 2024 FIDE Women's World Rapid Championship title on Friday. After the meeting with Hampi and her family, Prime Minister Modi lauded her as a sporting icon and praised her for not only bringing pride to India but also redefining excellence. Prime Minister wrote on the social media platform X, and I quote, "She's a sporting icon and a source of inspiration for aspiring players. Her sharp intellect and unwavering determination are clearly visible. She has not only brought immense pride to India but has also redefined what excellence is." Unquote. Australia bundled out India on a paltry 185 runs on the opening day of the final test at Sydney Cricket Ground on Friday. Even after Rohit Sharma opted out, India's struggle against pacers continued as the visitors could not even cross 200 mark. In the first inning, Rishabh Pant emerged as top scorer with 40 runs, while Ravindra Jadeja and captain Jasprit Bumrah also added few valuable runs to the scoreboard. At some stumps, Australia were 9 for loss of 1. Australia lead series 2-1 and will win the Border Gavaskar Trophy if they manage to beat India or draw the final test. That's all for this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We will be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Sakal Bhatran from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.